I'm going to turn now to The Clockwork Angel, which is the first in a prequel series set in Victorian London, featuring a whole new set of characters, but with many of the familiar Shadowhunter surnames that we know. I thought that the atmosphere of Victorian London was so successfully established in The Clockwork Angel. I'm just wondering, how did you get the mood and the setting right, and what sort of research did you do to achieve that?
I did this weird thing, which was for about 8 months before I wrote the book. I only read books that were set in the Victorian era or written either written during the Victorian era or written about the Victorian era. And I tried to only watch movies that were about the Victorian era, set in the Victorian era, and I drew the line in music. I was like, I can't. You didn't do that. But otherwise it was like this sort of weird, like, sensory deprivation experience in which it was nothing but nonfiction and fiction about the Victorian era, and then tons and tons of like first-person stuff, like lots of diary entries and stuff. I had a research assistant, she's really great. Her name is Lisa Gold, and she helped. She's helped a lot of writers of historical fiction, and she goes and she digs up these. There are tons and tons of diaries of travelers that exist from that era, because one of the things that people did was, Americans specifically, was go to Europe and then write down all of their experiences while they're in Europe, and they are actually fairly boring, and they're all titled things like My Gleanings and whatnot, but like, reading all of them over and over, reading so many of them, gave me a sort of sense of what it would be like for Tessa as an American to be in London after having grown up in the U.S. And it also gave me sort of a sense of what it was like to when you're writing historical fiction, you're doing this sort of thing that's like an iceberg. You're doing this enormous amount of research, and like they say that with an iceberg, you can only see the top 10%, and the other 90% is under the water. You only use about 10% of it, so you have to be willing to throw away a lot of it. But nevertheless, like having read all the cookbooks of that era, the decorating books of that era, the etiquette books, and all of the other stuff, I felt like it sort of, it sort of seeps in underneath and like creates this sense, hopefully, in the reader that you're looking at the 10%, but that 90% is there underneath, creating like a solid foundation.